In 2005, Ryan and I were, we served in Iraq from February to September '05, and we basically were, reservists. We were, he was a driver, I was a cook, and then essentially we were restructured to perform this duty of mortuary affairs. What that is basically transport, search and recovery efforts for fallen U.S. servicemen, and some ceremonial duties, revolving around these deaths of fallen servicemen. I think a burial is something that's very sensitive to every family. It helps them obtain closure. So that was really, if you had to get down to the nuts and bolts of what we were doing, we were helping the families obtain closure by recovering that fallen serviceman, getting them back home to the States in a timely manner. We had a 24-hour time frame put on us to make this happen. And so, because that notification had to come quick. If that family heard from the media, for somebody else, if it was from anyone other than, a dressed blue Marines on their doorstep, then they were done an injustice. So we had to get out there, recover those remains in a timely manner, prep them for transport, get them back to the States. So we were providing that family closure, so to speak.
Mortuary affairs is the task of making sure that everyone gets home, upholding the mentality of no man left behind.
When it first happened, first of all, I was never crazy about being a cook in the first place. But especially going from that to mortuary affairs, it was just sort of a crazy thing. I was not, I wasn't really happy about it. But then when we got into doing the work, it was very rewarding. You could tell that you were doing something that was helping people. To me, it was a much more active, much more involved, much more rewarding occupation than, say, cooking up food for guys over there. So, ultimately, I felt that it was my calling, and that it was something that was really helping people out. So I was happy that it happened.
The first time I had to go out and actually experience, somebody in a body bag. That really sticks out in my mind. We drove out to the flight line. It was in the middle of the night. 3 U.S. service members came in by helicopter, and I remember vividly a single drop of blood coming out of that body bag and landing on my boot, and that's really when it clicked for me. That wow, this is going on. This is real time. What I'm doing here. There's no way to prepare fully for something like that, and that's when the light switch really turned on for me. That this is going to be my next 7 months.
When we were on base and we were doing our job, prepping the bodies for transport, there would be escorts assigned to those remains, oftentimes from their same unit, the deceased party's unit. And those escorts would be emotionally attached to the deceased person in a very strong way. Oftentimes it was, somebody who served in combat with that, fallen U.S. serviceman. And so those guys would be sort of hanging out in the lobby as we were, doing our job. We would place the remains into a transfer case, which was essentially a casket, and then we would drape the flag on the transfer case, and we'd have the chaplain say the prayer and all that, and the escorts would be sort of waiting for us to complete these actions so they could get on their way back to the States. We would get into talking with these escorts, and we would notice that there was a need for sensitivity there. We recognized the value of providing sensitive dialogue in these people's most sensitive and traumatic moments. Okay, so recognizing that was sort of step one for starting Biotrauma. Step two was sort of hearing about this whole industry of biotrauma remediation, or cleaning up crime and trauma scenes. And what we found out was that families were doing it themselves. In fact, 80% of all incidents are cleaned up by families themselves. And when I talk about incidents, I'm referring to homicides, suicides, and oftentimes natural death. And anyway, we found out that they were doing it themselves. Okay, And of course, we had access to the internet, so we researched this this business idea, and it was something that you know we wanted to connect the two. We wanted to help people, but we also wanted to infuse sensitivity into that. So it was a no-brainer. You know, we could solve their problems, but we could do it in a way that was most helpful to them.
We're talking to an array of different people that that experienced a number of different situations, whether it be an IED or some kind of patrol that went wrong or something like that, and they're all going through these emotions, and they're all amplified by war. You know, we are in a war zone, so I feel that was the ultimate training.
You know, we're all aware that 80% of all these cleanup incidents get handled in-house. You know, families are doing it even as we speak. You know, we exist, we're getting the word out, but it's still, you know, we're not getting the word out good enough. Okay.
Like if you went to the phone book, you know, where are you going to look? This is the dilemma that people are left with. You know, after the police or after the first responders have come on scene, is no one knows, you know, really quite what to ask even, or which chapter to go into the yellow book. You know, oftentimes they find us on a search engine or something like that, and they're not even searching for a crime scene cleanup company per se. They're searching just for instructions on how to clean up blood or how to clean up after a death. As soon as somebody passes away, you know, the family's going through all sorts of things in their head. They're thinking funeral arrangements, you know, and they're also thinking, you know, they're going through the grieving process as well. It could have been their son, could have been their grandmother.
It's unfortunate that all these families are taking things into their own hands out of not knowing, you know, who's out there. But the next piece of the puzzle is that this is all covered under their homeowner's insurance policy. So it's really a no-brainer to utilize a professional service that will skirt, you know, exposing you to biologically, you know, hazardous waste and the trauma that goes along with that. You know, there's real psychological stress that occurs, you know, from being exposed to these traumatic incidents, you know, documented stress syndromes and what have you. So you can get around that. You can have, you know, your carpet replaced, your drywall touched up after the cleanup happens, you know, all through your homeowner's insurance policy. It keeps you safe physically, you know, and mentally, and you know, get your house restored. And the way we operate is such that we don't collect a deductible from the homeowner. So essentially, these cleanups can be cost-free to our client, and it's just a no-brainer. But our job is to get the word out there and say, hey, we're here to help you, and we're not going to further victimize you by, you know, handing you a huge bill. That's not the way we do things.
More oftentimes than not, these incidents become structural, and you know, to the naked eye, those types of things can be overlooked really easily. You can see a spot of blood on the carpet this big, but on the other side of the carpet, and people don't usually see this, is it has dispersed to